Hello, welcome to the new episode of the Product Marketing Show. I'm your host Rish, and with me I have Peep Laja, CEO of Wynter, a super fast B2B message testing platform. Hi Peep, how are you doing?
Doing good, man. Thank you for having me.
So Peep has led CXL, which was my marketing school, and today with him we're going to talk about website messaging, and particularly the angle: why do marketers spend less budget, like a tiny budget on messaging, which is responsible for most of your conversions? Peep, let's get started.
Let's do this.
Okay, Peep. Before we start, a big shout out to our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Content Beta. With Content Beta, you can instantly hire a team of designers, video producers, content creators at a flat monthly rate. Cancel anytime. Just scale your product marketing content today. So Peep, let's start with messaging. How is messaging on website different than other channels of communication?
Well, what other channels are there to communicate a message? I guess you could use images, but
let's say emails, let's say social media.
Okay. Well, we're talking distribution channels versus our key asset, which is the website. So I don't think we can. The messaging really is domain agnostic, right? So it doesn't matter if it's the email, if it's PPC, if it's your website. You should use the same messaging everywhere, because really what messaging is ideas. It's what do we want our target customers to know about us, right? And then you use different channels to get that idea out there.
Sure. And so since our audience is mostly software founders and marketers, there's a lot of buzz around, hey, benefits are more important than features. But how do you go about executing that? I mean, how do we get better at this?
I think there's a maturity curve here. And so there's awareness and maturity level of the category you are in. So if you're an email marketing tool, extremely old, very mature category, you don't need to say, oh, send more emails because you will make more money. I mean, it's obvious, right? Like we don't need to talk about these things that everybody knows. Like, why do this? It's obvious why send emails. So there, a feature-specific language is better because people are experts at this category. Whereas if we take a brand new category, like an emerging category is interactive demos that you embed on your website. There's like Walnut, there's Novatic, companies like that. And why have an interactive demo on your website might not be obvious. You can say, yes, feature, build interactive demos. But then you do need to translate it into benefits so people understand, why am I doing this? What's the point of this? So I think everybody really needs to assess their own tool. Like, are you a new innovative tool where people don't really know how and why to use you? Then you need more benefit copy. But if you're like a CRM, I know why I need a CRM. Like, otherwise it's like you're talking down to people. You're treating them as idiots.
Pretty good lens. So just think how evolved is your category, and if it's too crowded, just don't try explaining the obvious. So how do you fight in that category if you don't explain what you actually have?
Well, the main way to know whether people get your category or not is to do message testing. Like you send your messaging out there in front of your target, put it in front of your target customers, and you see if they get it. What questions come up? If they read your whole sales pitch, essentially, are they like, oh yes, I want it. It's so clear. I get it. Or are they like, huh? What? Why? And so based on the feedback, you can instantly check where you're at with your maturity level, and so whether you need to talk more about the benefits, like why do this, or is it obvious?
Got it. In terms of our theme of the podcast, so I think marketers spend a lot of money on designing their website. There are plenty of tools like lead magnets and trial signups. Why do you think they are not considering the words, the copy, so critical, or why are they not investing so much?
My prevailing hypothesis is, how hard is it to write words versus design beautiful images? So everybody who's gone to school knows how to write. You can type on a computer. So there's the perceived value or perceived difficulty of accomplishing it is very low versus designing beautiful imagery. Less people can do that. I mean, it's easier now with Canva and all that stuff. And like developing, putting together a platform is even more hard. Like you need engineers, you need highly technical skills to deploy websites, unless you're using Wix and whatever. So I think that is the reason why people undervalue messaging. However, if we would remove all words from a website, just leaving images and the CMS, what would happen to your conversion rate? I mean, it would go to zero. Like nobody would want your stuff. Nobody would understand your stuff. So really, everything else is just cosmetics around the messaging. Messaging is like 80-90% of your customer communication. The attractiveness of your product comes from the words you use. And the words you use are not equal. It's not like any word is as good. It's saying like the design doesn't matter or the functionality of your product doesn't matter. It matters. It's the same with your messaging, same with your copy, all of it. It matters, and it matters a great deal.
I loved your meme you posted yesterday. You had, I think, Aquaman with and without the beard, the entire facial hair, and I think that was hilarious. I mean, you couldn't identify who that person was without his facial hair.
Yeah, I mean, because why do we have websites? We want people to take some sort of an action. If we're a B2B site, we want them to request demos or sign up for our trials or freemium or whatever. So we want them to take action. Now, their motivation to take action, as well as their willingness to pay, all come from the perceived value of your product. So there's an hierarchy here where, of course, first of all, your messaging needs to be clear, like they get it. It needs to be relevant. Oh, this is for me. It's relevant. It ties into my current priorities. And then the most important is like, how badly do I want it? And that particular meme, same idea. Jason Momoa is either a very attractive man or looks like meatloaf. So yeah.
And how does that depend? How does the messaging, how frequently you should change as you grow? Should you review that every 6 months, or is it dependent on the stage of your product? I mean, what does it depend on?
So the question is, how often should we update our messaging?
Yeah.
You should update it when it's not working as well. So the essential thing here is like, it's an iterative process. So whatever you ship first, you take your website right now. You need to know how clear is it, and then so on. So what makes messaging good? Like, is my messaging good or not? Like that, or how can we improve the messaging? We can't look at the messaging as a whole. We need to distill it down to components or layers. Clarity, do the target customers get it? Relevance, do they understand this for them? A perceived value, and differentiation. So 4 layers. Now, you should conduct message testing on your messaging to know how you are scoring, how your messaging is scoring for each of these 4 levels. And you want to be, very highly clear, highly relevant, maximum perceived value, and clearly differentiated. So to get your current messaging there's an iterative process. You make changes, test your messaging, learn what's wrong, where it misses the mark, make changes, test again. Now you might land to messaging that is really resonating with the people, but 6 months, 12 months down the line, the very same messaging might not resonate anymore, and it's not because of you. It's usually because of what's happening in the external environment. It might be competition related, meaning that every direct competitor of yours is saying basically the same things. They're saying the exact same things, and so for the target customer, it's very hard to understand why go with you instead of the other people. You're not differentiated. So then, unless you're the category king, in which case you don't care, others need to be different from you. But if you're like number 10 or 20 or 200 in your category, you need to be clearly differentiated. Also, what might change is the macroeconomic environment. So, for instance, today we're kind of in a tech recession. Or are we? I don't know if we are or not, but most of the buyers believe we are in a recession. And so the objective reality doesn't even matter. It's what is the opinion out there. And so there's overwhelming evidence today that certain types of messaging are no longer resonating with people. One is this aspirational, dreamy, bigger narrative type of messaging. We are here to elevate the consciousness of the world, or whatever. Like this inspirational messaging just doesn't fly. People are very, what's the economic value of this? And also saving money versus making more money. Messages about being more efficient, cost saving, things like this are resonating better today than they were, let's say, 6 months ago. So macroeconomic things influence the relevance of your messaging. And how do you know if your messaging is still relevant today? Again, you need to test it. So I want to say at minimum, every 6 months, you should do a check. Kind of like as a human being, you should do an annual wellness check for your body, your health. Same idea that you should do a wellness check for your messaging.
For me, I do. For me, it's like demo requests. Like how many people book on demo requests. So is that metric the only metric should I look at, or do you recommend something else to do this health check?
Yeah, so there are leading indicators and lagging indicators. So a demo request or signups, those are lagging indicators. So if you want to get more demos or more, whatever type of conversions next week, it's very hard to know what do we need to change or do to get more. Is it just more traffic? And of course, in today's macroeconomic environment, you don't need more new marketing or new channels. You need to get more out of the people who are already hitting your website. And so really, it's the leading indicators that I would focus on to know if your messaging is resonating, which are the clarity, relevance, value, and differentiation. You want to check for those layers of your messaging because it's cause and effect. Somebody requesting a demo is the effect, but the cause is the messaging.
Got it. What are your thoughts on personalized messaging? I see a lot of tools who will personalize the messaging based on the visitor's location, or probably they connect it to where they're coming, where are they coming from, which demographic. What's your perspective on that?
More relevance is good as a principle, but just because personalizing messaging is easy technology-wise, you have tools like, your A/B testing tools or tools like Mutiny and IntelliMize and things like that. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Case in point, I was working on with a large, Fortune 500 brand on their messaging. It's a B2B company. And they were personalizing their messaging for all the pages, basically based on your IP address. They were figuring out if you're like SMB or a large company, if you're military or government or private corporation, things like that, they knew a lot about you. And based on that, if you are an SMB, we show this messaging. If you are, different type of company, we show this messaging. Now, I came in, did a bunch of customer research. I came up with a new generic value proposition, new messaging. And then I A/B tested it against the personalized segments, my new generic messaging versus their personalized SMB or government messaging. And the new generic messaging outperformed every personalized segment. The moral of the story is that just because you can personalize doesn't mean it's going to work better. So if you are going to personalize, saying, hello, person from Afghanistan, or hello, John, that's not personalization. Personalization is about relevancy, and relevancy is about pain points and priorities. Are we now saying something that talks about the pains they want to avoid, the desired gains, and anything else that's going on there? And then how do we talk about our product through the lens that really is more aligned with their actual priorities and challenges at hand? So in order to do this effectively, we need to know a lot about each, let's say, personalized segment. Let's say we want to target by job role, demand gen marketers, product marketers, customer marketing people, SAL people. Let's say that these are our target segments. We need to know their priorities and challenges for each of those roles, so we can actually personalize the messaging. So the tech is not complicated at all to personalize. The research, that's where the magic is, right? And that's time consuming. It can be expensive, depending on how many ICPs you wanna go after. The personalization tool is obviously also not cheap. And so if you do buy a personalization tool, but you're not putting in the work to really understand the ICP and what they actually care about, you're kind of wasting that budget. So back to my point, more relevant messaging is great, but you need to do all this work behind the scenes to make it actually effective.
I think, so just continuing my thought on the previous one. So I understand positioning is different than messaging. Can you just quickly through some analogy about how positioning and messaging are different? And I have a follow-up question on that.
Yeah. So positioning comes before messaging. So positioning answers the question, what is it? What is it? And what problems do we solve for whom? Like the target user is in there. Positioning answers, what value does my desired target customer care about? And what problem do we solve for them? And positioning does not go on your website. That's for your internal know-how. Like, how do we want to come across? Are we a CRM for dentists, or are we a CRM for bankers? And those are different market segments with different pain points, different price points they're willing to pay. And so the functionality of a product might be the same, but if you want to be CRM for bankers versus dentists, everything else is different. And so first we decide, who are we targeting, which pain points are we solving for this person? And then comes messaging. And the messaging is essentially, the simplest way to think about it is like 3 to 5 key ideas we want the target customer to know about us. We can't expect that they know everything about us. They don't have enough interest level. So it's like when they come on our website or we engage them on social media or whatever, like what are the ideas we want to put inside their head every single day, day in and day out. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, I'm doing messaging work, and it's not like I'm sending out a single message. Every day I'm posting something on social and I'm sending a signal. So if you're engaging with my content or exposed to my content over a year, you will learn certain ideas that I'm sending out there, which is messaging is important. It's actually the most important thing. you should test your messaging, and then this is how you test your messaging, and some other ideas that it increases your conversion rate, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's the distinction.
Looking at, I follow your profile, and something which strikes differently is, I don't know if you'll agree, but it seems your positioning is a bit bold, right? You pick a side, like a pretty strong side. Now, most B2B SaaS, they are scared to pick up have a bold position. You think they should do, or is it dependent on something else? Do you have a mental model around that?
I think you're talking about point of view here rather than positioning. Because positioning doesn't take a stance, really. Positioning is like, what are we and who are we for and what for? So, but a point of view is putting a stake in the ground. And this is what we believe. And maybe there's some polarization, maybe like intentional polarization for marketing reasons, like this is out and this is good. So, for instance, in a new emerging category of global employment, which is companies like Oyster and Deal and Remote, there's a huge battle going on between these brands, and they're having points of view on what's the right course to go to do remote employment. Whereas like Oyster is saying that it's about providing jobs and it's about compliance and we pay the taxes and it's like remote jobs. Everybody has job security. Whereas Deal's approach is more like it's a financial. It's more like a fintech approach to what's a tax efficient and compliant way to hire people from abroad, and usually as a contractor rather than a full-time employee. So like there's a set of beliefs of what is the right way to do it. You can see this going on. When it also comes to point of view, there's another company that comes to mind. It's called First Base. And it's also for the remote work environment. Essentially, it's a tool to order equipment, work from home equipment for your remote employees, from desks to computers. Now, if you look at their marketing, what they're saying is they're only advocating that remote work is the best and in-office work success. They're like, that's the polarized view. Yay, remote work. F, working from home. We're working from the office, right? And then most of the content is just evangelizing remote work, not about you can buy, you can get laptops through us. So that's like a point of view. I believe that remote work is better for everybody, and working from office. And now, and a competing brand could come in and say, working from home, remote employment is bullshit because of all these reasons. The morale goes down, the team cohesive, like whatever arguments that, like something they believe. And these are both subjective truths, and they're both right. Because nothing is objectively better. It's just trade-offs. And so, yes, to your point, most companies do not have a strong point of view, because having a point of view also means rejecting something. You're against something. You say something is inferior, and that's uncomfortable for a lot of brands.
So they're mostly scared that I don't want to get my target customer away from that. I want best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I think the smaller your brand is, the more risk you can take with bolder positions. Because competition is fierce. You need to stand out from the noise, and the bigger companies get, the less risk, the more risk averse they are. They have legal departments whose job is to protect the company from lawsuits. Everything they put out there goes through legal review. They can't be bold and gutsy anymore. So yeah, as a small brand, if you're a small brand without a point of view, well, that's a missed opportunity.
I loved your thinking. So probably in the early stage, try to get the market, try to have this polarized view, and probably when you grow, need to have a balanced view.
Yeah, that's probably a fair assessment. Yeah.
Really good. Thank you so much, Peep, for spending time and sharing your insights. If our listeners or viewers would love to, testing messaging is hard work and probably takes a lot of time. How can they take help of Wynter?
Well, Wynter makes it click, 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 done. So if you're a B2B company and want to test your messaging, we will tell you in 24 hours what your actual ICP thinks about your messaging. Do they get it? Do they find it relevant? Do they want it? Do they find it differentiated? And we do this because Wynter is a two-sided marketplace. We connect SaaS vendors with people who buy SaaS, right? So we bring them together.
Pretty neat. I'll leave the link in the show notes so people can check out Wynter and see if they can take some help.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peep. Have a lovely day.
Cheers.